Right. Well, we should probably get to ranking this great Celtic team. As you know, we have 5 categories of greatness, from all-time greats at the top to true greats, then to touch of greatness, age of greatness, and blink of greats. And Jamie, I'll start with you again. You can give your. I will give you the first shot. What do you reckon? Where do you place this team?
Yeah, it's just an absolute bucket of brilliance, really. O'Neill, we've talked about he's just that, we go back to the '98 World Cup again. He just manages sincerity and realism and dry humor in such a brilliant way. And he clearly is a brilliant manager, as well as knowing the right people to put in the back room. And I think that's what he's done here, to kind of set Celtic up for success and to win the treble in his very first season, and to overhaul a 21-point gap from the nearest rivals, Rangers. It's just fantastic. And I love the way that he manages the expectations in his first season as well. He's loading the pressure onto Rangers. It's all about Rangers, as Martin's mentioned, which is fantastic. And then it just goes on from there, and it keeps getting better and better. We've talked about the records and the stats: 25 game winning run, the 103 points, which is a record that is probably never going to be beaten. It's just a huge number of points to get in a football league season. Fantastic players. Henry Larsson, one of my favourite players I think I've seen, but just a brilliant collection of players, and bringing life back into Chris Sutton, a footballer who probably had seen better days. Martin O'Neill is the right fit for Chris Sutton, and we see another side of Chris Sutton, which is absolutely amazing. The legacy we've touched on, which is fantastic in terms of Celtic, are now gone on and they're just dominating the Scottish Premier League. Everything about them tells me all-time greats, apart from one thing, and it's that European voodoo. It's fallen at the final hurdle. And Martin, you mentioned about the Champions League, and it would have been nice to see Celtic go deep into the Champions League to make the last 16 under O'Neill, or even the last 8, which would have been absolutely thrilling. To see Celtic, Celtic Park rocking in the quarterfinals of the European Cup would be fantastic. But we didn't get that. We got a flavour of it in the UEFA Cup run, but unfortunately Celtic came up against an upstart in Jose Mourinho, whose tactics were just a little bit too weighted against Celtic to win a European trophy. So all of that said, ranty, I'm going to go the second tier, Graham, and put this particular Celtic team as true greats and kick us off there.
True greats, Martin. What do you reckon?
It's such a great question, Graham. I'm just reflecting as Jamie's talking there. I think true greats is generous. If we're talking, of all the teams, from a Celtic perspective, I'm just thinking about Celtic. I think true greats is totally spot on. I mean, there only is, there has only ever been one team of all-time greats at Celtic, and that, of course, was the 1967 team that won 5 trophies, including the European Cup. And what made that team all the more remarkable, as I'm sure you're both well aware, is that all of the players came within a very, very small radius around Glasgow. They were pretty much all from Glasgow, apart from Bobby Lennox, who came from Saltcoats, which is on the Ayrshire coast. And it's never happened since, and will obviously never happen again. And those guys are the all-time greats. Does this team come close to that team? Probably not. But certainly in the modern era, they're the best Celtic team. One of the discussions we sort of have recently is how would the modern team get on against O'Neill's team? How would Rodgers' invincible team get on against O'Neill's team? And to be fair, O'Neill's team would have too much. I mean, with Henrik Larsson alone, you're dialing up to a level of quality that the modern team couldn't compete with. But then you throw in just the muscle of Lennon and Thompson and Lambert and Sutton and Hartson and Vulgarin and Balde and Mjalby, these beasts who can also play football. You'd be hard pushed to rank them anything outside true greats from a purely Celtic perspective. But a global perspective, they're probably in the third category. I think that's what it would be if you take all the great teams into account. I'm happy with where Jamie's put us.
Yeah, I think you sum it up absolutely spot on. I think, if they'd won UEFA Cup final, you would the case for true greats would be stronger, but I just think it's the weight of expectation, and I think if you put this story in the context of what O'Neill achieves, really, that if you look at the decade he's followed, and pretty much from the instant he walks into the building, as they like to say in football, while he's in the building, it just all changes, and that is the mastery of the man. Adds the fact I'm an absolutely massive Martin O'Neill fan. I just think he's one of the greatest men in football, I have to say. It's interesting, he hasn't really sort of touched on it, but he's obviously taken the best bits of Brian Clough's man management, or survived the Brian Clough experience in one way or another, and that shows through. And I think I think what, again, and we have this every now and then, I think probably the head would say touch greatness, but the heart says true greats. So for that reason alone, I think Martin O'Neill Celtic, true greats.
True greats. We have consensus.
Wow, brilliant.